Hey there, boils and ghouls. Welcome to another episode of Halloweekly. Nick and George here with our review for 2018's The Ritual.
Netflix's original, right? It's an original for them.
I believe it's an original for them. It had the little Netflix thingy on it, so I'm assuming that means it's a Netflix original.
So I watched this last night, and you just watched it now, right?
Yep.
So, and what do you think of this movie?
Right off the bat, I really enjoyed it, especially after Cloverfield Paradox came out. I really expected that to just mop the floor with everything, and it didn't really deliver. But this film, there was I was gonna say a lot less hype, but really there was no hype for Cloverfield. It was literally, here's a trailer, it's out, so there wasn't a hype train.
There was some God particle hype, but no one knew that was this, right? Mm-hmm. Right.
But I think just first reactions is I thought it was really well done. It was a little it was like a slow paced horror, but not slow in a bad way. The build ups I felt were really, really well done. The acting was believable, especially for a group of dudes. A lot of horror films have a group of friends and it doesn't feel like they're friends.
Right.
But this film had a group of guys who grew up together and went to college together and had a history with each other, and I really liked that. It didn't feel fake at all. What did you think?
Well, so I'll try to do non-spoiler first, right? So I actually really liked my argument against this movie. I really like the movie. Mm-hmm. My argument against the movie is only going to be that it's too clever, which is going to be a weird argument to have with a horror movie, but I'm going to try it. So, but basically I really liked the structure of it. I liked that it was actually scary in parts, which is when they dump movies on streaming, sometimes you're just it's only going to be cheap jump scares. Mm-hmm. There's literally only one jump scare that I can remember in this entire movie, and it's really effective, but it's so not a jump scare. We actually talked about when we were watching it, it was reminded us of the Exorcist 3 nurse jump scare because it was really well paced. It wasn't a cat fake out. Yeah, and they took their time with it.
The way they took their time with it was another point I wanted to go on, was the cinematography. I thought the cinematography was really beautiful because it's a lot of just forests and woods and mountains and all the other kind of stuff. But they did a lot of
you like the cinematography that you would never physically go into. You're watching this movie. You're like, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm not going to that path.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go into the mansion in Crimson Peak.
That's true. That's totally true.
But I like it.
But you visit the set.
I would definitely visit the set.
But real quick, hold that thought, because let's do a little setup for the people who haven't seen it yet. So basically, what happens is it's five friends.
Originally, in the very beginning.
There's five friends, and they're deciding what they're going to do on their basically yearly getaway.
Yes.
And they've decided sort of subconsciously as they've gotten older that their getaways have gotten more boring, right? So they used to go to Amsterdam, and now they're let's go hiking in Sweden.
Yeah.
Right? And then tragedy befalls one of them, and they sort of do something in honor of him. They pick the getaway he would have done. And it puts them in a really dangerous, Swedish version of the Blair Witch Project pretty fast.
Yes, and that's the way you had pitched the movie to me. It's the descent with, it's sort of like the descent with a splash of Blair Witch in terms of a group of people go to a isolated place, and there's some sort of force that they don't know about that they're soon going to discover.
Yep. And surprisingly, being outdoors, it's really claustrophobic, at least once they get in the forest.
Yeah, this film, honestly, I think the reason I liked it so much is it felt like a mix of everything from a bunch of other horror films that I love.
Yes.
So we mentioned The Descent, we mentioned Blair Witch Project, but this also felt a lot like The Witch, because of the setting.
For sure.
It was just really foggy, wet, damp, and then the music we mentioned sort of felt like what was the one film? The one.
Harakiri?
It felt like that because of the drums and the music.
Yes.
But then there was the other one with the mask.
Oh, Onibaba.
That's the one. Onibaba.
Oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, but well, here's the thing though. There's one. The interesting part to me is that they have ideas from these movies. The thing that I think sort of sucks is this is going to be my argument against it.
Yeah.
Is that it was too smart, because I really enjoyed the movie, but when it was over, I felt like it had cannibalized 50 other horror movies
Yes.
in parts, and that's great, except for like Wes Craven can do that in Scream, and that works. The reason I felt like it didn't work here was because it's supposed to be this otherworldly, like I wanted it to like Twin Peaks me, right? Like take me to another location that was whatever. And I felt like it just gave me the amusement park tour of horror movies I love.
Yes.
Right. So it's supposed to be like a faraway land, but everything felt so familiar because they referenced 50 other movies in here. Right. It feels too familiar is my problem with it. Right. So there's all kinds of stuff they're cribbing from other movies, but they literally, to me, the fact when I had mentioned this when we were watching it, the fact that you have same gender group, like in The Descent, right? So that starts, and then what happens is they sort of fracture with each other, which is pure Blair Witch Project, and they also turn on each other sort of the way the kids in It turn on each other.
Yep.
Right. So there's like trust issues, a little bit of paranoia, like who's like whatever. So it gets really familiar really fast.
Yeah, and but like all those beats that they reference from other horror films, like it just works so well, like in this setting, in this situation.
I don't know what I would change.
Yeah, like everything.
That's the problem is.
And honestly, this is probably my. So I mean, we're only like a month and some change into 2018, but I think that so far this is probably like my favorite horror film of the year. I mean, not that there's been a lot of else.
Poor.
It's been like what
start.
Winchester. Cloverfield Paradox, maybe a few other things. So I don't know if Into the Fucking World would count, but
movie wise, it's been pretty weak.
Yeah, movie wise, so far I've really been digging this, and it didn't feel like a drag either.
No, well, that was the thing is I was afraid it was sort of like a slow burn horror, but you didn't feel like a drag, so then I was.
No, I thought, good. And actually, one thing I really sort of took note of was the pacing of the film. Like there wasn't any long gaps of like bullshit of them talking or anything like that, or them trying to figure out what's in the woods or this other stuff. It really focused on like their relationship and them talking, and then every 25 minutes or so, then a big event would happen to one of the friends.
Yes.
But I'm just thinking of the cinematography. Like even when they went into the cabin, how fucking freaky that cabin was.
That cabin was absolutely great. Like and the shots in there were the light going through the little holes in the cabin. Yes. It wasn't like the Evil Dead cabin, which is basically Swiss cheese. Right?
This sort of felt like the ending of Paranormal 3, like in terms of like witchcrafty type of stuff. Like imagine that, but like in a cabin in the woods.
Totally.
Which I thought was really nice.
I thought it was really kind of cool the way they were doing some funny stuff. I like Scandinavian horror movies, but they're really bleak. Not even horror movies, just Scandinavian movies are really bleak in general, right? So the fact that they would throw something in like the cabin you're talking about, when the friends break in the door and they get in the cabin because they're trying to get in out of the terrible weather.
Yeah.
They find this abandoned cabin, they break in, and then when they walk in, the one character's like, well, this is clearly the cabin we're all going to get killed in. And it was hilarious. And then it was even funnier that it was absolutely not true, even though it totally looked that way. None of them die at that cabin.
No.
Right?
A lot of stuff kickstarts at the cabin.
A lot of stuff kickstarts at the cabin, but they don't die at the cabin, he was technically right. So it was funny and true, which I like that they were kind of salting in some hilarious stuff there. Even the pacing of it, like you had mentioned, I wanted to see if you would notice, because it caught my eye when I first watched it, the scene where the friends get together and they're doing a tribute to their dead friend, and then they do the pour one out ritual, right? And there's a shot on the guy who they pass the little flask around, and then he pours it out, and literally they pour out like 90% of the bottle because they basically sipped at it like babies. So it was, but the camera just stays on him, and the character, the guy who's pouring it, it's just taking forever. He even gets a little smile on his face, even though it's supposed to be like a solemn like moment.
They just hang on it for a while. So it's really comedic the way
how
long they hang on it. It plays really well.
And I thought it was great that they were able to get in those little comedy moments in a movie that is basically so dark.
Yeah, and
I'm trying to remember, was there a funny moment in Blair Witch Project?
I'm sure there was like some silly.
There was funny moments between the characters in the beginning, but they weren't really funny to us. They were funny to them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember there being a.
Not like that. Not like the way this film.
Right.
Not like the way this film did. And I can tell you there wasn't any scenes like that in The Witch. So.
No, right. There's nothing funny in the. I mean, I think there was one moment where the Anna Taylor-Joy's character, she tortures one of the two little kids, and that is the only point in the movie I remember laughing.
Yeah,
it's got one.
That's a little.
This has got 10. So.
That's a little different. The friendship between all the guys I really like because there was the character Dom who was obviously the weakest link in the group. He was just kind of a baby back bitch, always complaining.
Well, maybe. I mean, we'll get into spoilers. Let's go into spoilers. So maybe because that is how he acts, but in the Final Destination order in which they go, he's not the weakest link.
Yeah, I mean, just because you didn't
or
die
it's just
first
random.
It's random. Just because you didn't die first doesn't mean you were the weakest link. Conan the Barbarian could be leading the group and get hit.
I don't know. He gets beat to crap at the end, and he still gives this inspirational, motivational. I think he's got a little more strength than.
I think he's the reason they got caught.
All right, cool. The Dom Hate Club is officially
for twisting his angle. He sort of had like a little bit of redemption at the end when he was like, telling the main character, you're gonna get out. You're gonna tell my wife this, that. So he had a little bit of. It wasn't even that. It wasn't even like a big redemption because it wasn't like he was a terrible character. He was just like a kind of a pain in the ass.
Well, that was another thing I really liked about this movie, but it might be in there accidentally. So it gave me these moments where I was judging what they were doing based on so what Dom says is he says like, you're going to burn this place down and you're going to run out of here and you're going to live your life. And you tell my wife that I did everything I could to get back to her. You didn't do shit to get back to her. He literally did nothing. He wasn't watching where he was walking. He hurts his knee. He doesn't defend anyone ever. He hides anytime anything bad happens. And then he gets caught and tied up. Like, he literally, if this is his effort to get back to his wife, then don't tell her that. Just tell her something else. Like,
for some reason, when like that
he does nothing.
When that scene came up, he was like, "I want you to go home," and I for some reason in my head, I thought he was gonna say, "I want you to go home and fuck my wife," because I am not.
That would have been better than what he said.
I am not making it out of here.
I mean, he's the Frodo of this movie. He literally does nothing, and he's pretty weak. But
no, he wasn't even the Frodo. He was, what was it? There was Frodo, Sam, and like the other two hobbits, kind of just like dicking off. He was one of those guys.
Okay,
he was one of those guys.
Yes.
And I also thought so. The whole film keeps revolving around the fact that he didn't help his friend when he was getting the shit beat out of him at the liquor store.
Yes.
And I really liked that, how it started out at the liquor store where he sees his friend get murdered.
Yes,
pretty much. And then every time,
one might argue, assists his friend in getting murdered.
Well, witnessed at the bare minimum,
right?
Witnessed. But every time it had that flashback in the woods, the memory kept getting more woodsy.
Yes.
So like at first it was like, hey, there's a convenience store, but instead of linoleum on the floor, it's grass. And then it started getting more and more to the point where at the end it was just like liquor shelves in the woods and he's running through it and there's like that, like the fluorescent lighting.
That was awesome.
All those flashbacks were really, really well done.
That was real. And you're right. The progression is brilliant. And it leads to the scene where the monster is chasing parallel to him running through the shelves / woods. And that shot is just because the monster crashes in and it's crunching through woods, but it looks like it's knocking over liquor shelves. Yeah, it's just fucking brilliant. It's a really good shot.
What did you think of the monster design?
I thought it was great. I loved the monster design of this. This is my favorite monster since Calvin, or actually since Colossal, I would say. But it's a really cool design. It's really unsettling, and the reveal of the design as it goes is so the jump scare is the monster moving in the woods, which is fantastic. There's a moment where you see sort of the monster before that, but it's grabbing the tree with its hand, and then it's just the fingers going back. It was sort of the same shot as from Signs, like when the alien disappears in the cornfield.
Yeah.
But then when you get the full-on reveal, I thought what was really cool is, and we should talk about this because this is kind of confusing in the movie, the monster is the bastard son of Loki. Mm-hmm. It's Nordic, some kind of god that these people worship. And it has some kind of power to show you something from your past that makes you feel guilty, sort of like Pennywise would.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
because it's not just the one character hallucinating. They're all having nightmares.
The one guy saw his wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's manipulating your mind, what you're seeing, right? Mm-hmm. But the full monster reveal, there's this scene where, and it's genius. It's so genius because it's full on King Kong structure. They got the character tied to the tree. They're offering him to the evil god. The camera's shot straight down this path in the forest, and you're just looking, waiting for the branches to move, and
it just sort of like it's like
the
a
monster's
gradient.
coming, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing. And then you hear rustling, and then you hear heavy footsteps, and then his wife shows up, just comes out of the woods, and it's this great fake out because you're expecting something huge.
Yeah,
and she walks up to him, and he's like, Gail, like he's saying her name, like, is it really you? But he knows it's not. And you look at her eyes, and they've got this evil, weird gleam.
Yeah, there's something like weird about it.
They're not human.
Yeah.
And then it transitions to the monster and it's his eyes, and then it gives you the reveal of the design. So not only is the design good, but the way they gave it, the way they showed it was amazing.
And they saved it too until the very end. Like you see like glimpses of the creature running. One of the shots I wanted to talk about before was like the Exorcist 3-esque jump scare, and the film did a lot of this. Exorcist 3 did it, and The Shining did it a lot, where it's just like really slow zoom ins.
Yes,
but they're real slow. It's not like a Sam Raimi like chop zoom.
Creepy
it's just
slow.
Yeah, it's just real slow. It's just enough for your eyes to register like, hey, we're slowly moving forward.
Yep.
But the Exorcist 3 scare scene I thought was great because the way it's framed is like super unnatural. Like it doesn't look like something you'd see normally in a film. Because just to sort of paint the picture for the listeners is it's a tree, just a tree in the middle of the frame, but like out of focus. And you see our guys to the left going up a hill, nothing to the right. And then right before they exit frame, you see the monster like jostle or start to head their way. Yep. And it's like camouflaged into the background so you can't even see it until like the second it moves.
Yep.
And it's super well done. One more shot, just to go back a little bit. The sort of like the Blair Witch like tree, or what would you call the Blair Witch thing, like this the
symbols,
like made out of sticks. The scene when they wake up in the cabin sort of reminded me of the Pazuzu statue in Exorcist.
Totally.
The way they sort of just the way they shoot it.
Yep.
Like it
was totally like that because it's got the wings.
Yeah.
It's headless, but the way it was framed, that kind of like, it's like the arms bent at the elbows, left angles stance that makes it look like Pazuzu.
Yeah,
for sure.
I really thought that was great. It just felt like a lot of call outs to great horror films, but not in a way like we just did the episode of like
stealing ideas.
Yeah, stealing ideas, and which is super ironic. Like this film comes out and it has like a bunch of stuff that feels like other horror films.
Yep,
but does them right.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't know that it's on purpose. I really don't. Certain types of stories call for certain types of things, right? Like if you were doing if you're doing kidnapped or Robinson Crusoe, when the guy's stranded on an island, that book was written in like the 16th century or whatever. But Castaways got the same beats.
Yeah.
Because certain stories call for certain kind of things. If you're a person trapped alone on an island, certain things are going to happen. There's going to be like food and water issues. There's going to be like what you discover on the other parts of the island. Like that, you can't avoid those things in the story, right? So there's things in this story that definitely come from other horror movies. I don't even know if it's an accidental purpose because they never point to it. Like Wes Craven would be like nudging you in the ribs. Like, what do you think of notice this? Did you like whatever? But they didn't. So it's maybe the story demanded it. Maybe they were doing it on purpose. But there were so many of them that was where it started to accumulate for me. And I was just like, I love this movie, but I feel like some of it the punch got pulled. The impact was a little bit less just because by the time I was done, I felt like I had been at a garage sale of my favorite horror film memorabilia. So, yeah, I don't know. I really like the movie. I don't know. We should talk about the music, too.
The music was really well done. We mentioned a little that it was harakiri. Is that how you say it? Harakiri.
Yep.
A little bit with the percussions.
Yes. But it was, I mean, I guess the feeling to me was it really added to the creepy factor of the movie in the good way.
Right? The soundtrack was great. I put it up there with like the Witch soundtrack in terms of just like, this is gonna sound so super LA. It had like a real organic feel. That's the only way I could describe it. Like the music felt like what those woods were.
Yes, and well, yeah, and the other thing is that there are tons of other movies that like the generic Bye Man or The Darkness or those kind of movies where they try to do this kind of ominous minimalist music underneath, but it doesn't work at all. They got someone really talented to do this one, you can tell, because it was spot on. It just emotionally like manipulated you, but you never were like, oh, I'm listening to music outside the movie. You know, it was a great blend.
Yeah, no, I thought it was really great. And what's funny is I wrote down a bunch of films that like it sort of reminded me of a little bit, and two films that seem to split the horror crowd reminded me of the second one. I mentioned The Witch. Second one being The Babadook.
Yes.
For the main reason being, it sent both films had one characters that had traumatic things happen in their lives, and they're trying to overcome it while there's a monster slowly screwing with them. Yep. And they both end with our main protagonist looking at the creature, screaming.
That was great.
Screaming their lungs out at them.
That was totally great. And you're absolutely right. There's some kind of accommodation or message they got passed from the main character to the monster that is the same thing as something transpired between the mom and the Babadook where they have some kind of understanding of some kind. And there's this moment at the end where that character is yelling at the monster and they have some kind of understanding.
Well, it's because
that's based on pain, I think, because they kept pointing to all the pain the character had felt in his life.
And you could tell they made a connection. So like when in the Babadook, the lady's holding her son. She screams, leave my son alone or whatever. And then it shuts down.
Right.
But in this film, it was our main guy, the monster. He screams at the monster. The monster screams back at him. He screams at the monster. The monster screams back at him. And so like, it was sort of like they acknowledged like he matched like, I don't know, the anger of that monster and was like, listen, like we're done. Like this, we're not doing this anymore.
Right.
Like just like sealing the deal with him. Like I'm going home. I gotta go home. Fuck off, Loki. You Loki troll looking son of a bitch.
Yeah, that was great. I actually really liked that. And one of the things that I thought was really clever about this, because there were almost puns in it. So first of all, the title itself is a pun. So here, I have a question for you. The movie's called The Ritual. When was The Ritual?
The Ritual was when Dom was getting sacrificed.
So the Ritual wasn't them doing this getaway every year.
Oh, you son of a bitch. Well, I think
Right?
I both.
Right.
One was them going on a trip,
And
one was
then remember he tells the woman we call the Cracker Barrel waitress. She tells she tells the main character, your ritual is coming. You're gonna have to bow before him. So there's a scene which is actually my favorite moment of the monster in the movie when he just stands straight up and becomes almost like a totem pole.
Yeah, he like stood up and then like put his hands together like he was praying to something bigger than
Right.
him.
He was like exactly, and then he pushed the guy down like he was going to kneel to him, which was his ritual. Like there's rituals all through the thing, right? And even when you pour something out,
Yeah,
for
that was
like
another ritual. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is the movie was playing with the idea of those things, which is part of my thing about why it's too clever because it was almost too. Like I mean, I playing with it once is great, but there were like 10 of them spread throughout the movie, right? So
You got to get the value out.
You could just you could literally feel the writer being like, "Oh my god, I've written 30 pages and there hasn't been another ritual." Here we go.
It made titling the film way easier.
Right, exactly. So that was one thing for good and for bad. My favorite thing in the movie, at least conceptually, is don't fuck with Sweden. This is amazing, right? Because The Witch, the movie, has don't fuck with Mother Nature. This is very specific. Don't fuck with Sweden. Watch this. This is great. Literally, the Dom, the character who gets injured first, he's strolling along in Sweden, hiking with the rest of the people. And he all of a sudden goes, everyone's like, yeah, we're having fun, right? It's cold, but it's great. It's like, whatever. And the guy's like, it sucks. Sweden sucks. Sweden can lick my bridge, which was gross.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he says it, he breaks his knee or turns his knee like in the rocks. It's like Sweden reaches up and just like kidney punches him and he goes down, right? So he gets hurt. That's the first time. And then literally you watch this movie, play a drinking game. Anytime anyone says Sweden sucks or fuck Sweden, something bad happens to him immediately. I mean, this is literally
I paid zero attention
like
to the amount of time.
it's like a secret, like a way of. There's actually a moment when the characters are arguing, and the one guy goes, "Yeah, no, it's beautiful here," like whatever, and the guy's like, "If you fucking love Sweden so much, why don't you marry her?"
He goes straight third grade on him.
Totally. But then this guy ends up getting like literally intermingled with Swedish trees. That's his manner of death.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that. Like,
Yeah, let's talk about
what the creature does when he gets a hold of you.
Which is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, I didn't really expect it. Like I was waiting for them to like devour them in some way.
Right.
I'm still not exactly sure what he does to.
He Christmas ornaments them.
Yeah, he
It's
just
death by Christmas ornament. He hangs them on trees.
But like between the branches, in between trees. So it's like, but it's like you're
Well,
impaled.
up in the air,
Yeah.
but you're impaled on some branches, but not others. It's weird.
The way that like you're strung up, it almost looks like barbed wire, but like in a tree, but in your cot.
There's actually a great moment. It's when the monster kills Dom, where it's Evil Dead style when Ash is flying through the woods and you're with him in the camera. Like it was the monster was carrying Dom, and all you saw was head, but you saw all the trees going by because it was carrying him to impale him.
And it was like holding him by like the mouth.
Right, it was so weird.
It looked really good. It was sort of like in Trick or Treat when the Sam like has the lollipop in the one person's mouth.
Absolutely. But then that's when he impales him in the tree, and you just see it from his face. You don't see the rest of it. But it's pretty. So it led to one of my favorite funny moments of the movie, which felt really true. This movie was really authentic. There were no false notes, which was great. But they find a animal in the trees first.
Yes.
And it's impaled and gutted and its guts are on the ground. It's pretty gross. And they're arguing about what caused this. And the one guy has what I thought was a pretty plausible theory that there are hunters around and they're using it as bait.
Yeah.
And the other one goes, what if a bear did it? And this deer's like 20 feet up in the air, impaled on branches. And they turn to each other like, do bears do that? And the guy's like, I'm no fucking bear expert.
I'm just throwing out ideas.
But just the idea of like four city guys just like coming across this and then trying to literally guess what the probabilities of
Just comprehending the fact that there's a dead animal strung up in the trees like that.
It was pretty.
With its guts.
It was pretty great. And you pointed out one of the cool things was they find a gun later and they don't turn into like instant John McClane's. They don't know how to work the gun. They have trouble loading it.
He has an idea. Like it looks like he learned how to do it through like a video game or something like that.
Exactly. which was cool.
Well, the film also gives us like the scene where like he like puts the bullet in. I don't know how to load a gun, but he puts the bullet in.
It's a bold action. It's like Oswald used to kill JFK.
Just like that. And
yes.
And then he looks at the guy and he pulls a trigger and you see the click and he's like, oh shit. And then he has to figure it out. And I kind of like that because.
And then when he reloads it, he accidentally kills the guy in front of him while he's reloading it.
Yeah.
Like he literally puts the bullet in, but his finger's clearly on the trigger because the gun just goes off and.
Butterfingers.
And kills the guy, which was great. Because that guy had no interest in living. He was just trying to pass along a message. You could tell he was.
That guy was weird.
Let's talk about the creepy as fuck attic full of breathing, not dead.
They didn't go into that at all. They just left that.
Well, I mean, I'll give you my theory. My theory was that the one woman he met in that village said that they worship this god. And it gives them time beyond natural lifespan. Mm-hmm. So they sacrifice to it and they worship it. And in return, it gives them everlasting life. But she didn't say everlasting youth. Mm-hmm. So those people might just be people who just can't die because they worship this thing and they've been doing it for 500 years and that's what they look like.
That sounds
maybe
plausible. Yeah.
I couldn't tell if they were used to be human because here's the thing that made me think that was what was happening was that transitional woman, the woman who comes in and brings them water. Mm-hmm. She looks like she's becoming one of those things.
Yeah.
She's all stooped and wrinkly and
eventually she's just going to dry it out in the attic.
So that could be totally wrong, but that was
I really like that scene. That scene reminded me a lot of the werewolves in church scene in Silver Bullet.
Yep.
Because it's just like a total creature feature moment.
They're all lined up in pews.
Yeah. It felt like that scene mixed with the dinner scene of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That makes sense.
Yeah, everyone, totally. It's just the whole family's there being weird.
And what I thought was really cool was how the movie made things non-dramatic. As a matter of fact, I feel like that was the impulse the movie had the whole time, which I really appreciate, was even the characters, when they were trying to get dramatic, would turn on each other. Mm-hmm. Like one of them would start to get dramatic and the other one would be like, we promised we're going to keep our shit together. Like, so they were literally themselves trying not to get dramatic, but there were scenes in other horror movies would be super dramatic and they weren't in this one. When he walks into that place where all the living zombie, whatever they're all lined up. He just looks at them and then he casually leans over with his torch and just starts burning them. Like he doesn't, there's no wind up. There's no, this is for my friends.
There was no stupid
He
one-liner.
literally just tips the torch over like, poop.
He's like, yeah,
I'm going to set you on fire. I'm going to set you on fire.
You look weird.
Yeah. Which I really like that it didn't melodrama.
Yeah. Because especially like with most, like Lost in the Woods or like just in general Lost, scenarios, most people, they start freaking out. They go immediately off the deep end.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God, we're lost.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah. But the fact that they try to keep them grounded, like it didn't feel like a stupid, oh, I'm lost in the woods, let me just freak out. Like they actually had a game plan.
Yep.
Let's try to figure it out. And then the steps that eventually made it worse and worse didn't feel forced.
Right.
Which was great.
That was totally cool.
Because most of the time when that starts to happen in a horror film, you feel it.
Yep.
Like you're like, oh, they're making dumb choices because that's what the writer had them do.
And you know what's really, really interesting is if you say you're gonna make a cult themed Lost in a haunted woods. I mean, the Blair Witch Project has to just be sitting there like a shadow over your whole project. Like, how are you not going to be the Blair Witch Project, right? So you're like, okay, we're not doing found footage. Is that enough? No, because if you have people wandering around in the woods, people carving shit in the trees as symbols to war, like it's Blair Witch, right? But one thing I thought they did really well was in the Blair Witch. So what the Blair Witch reboot, remake, whatever that thing was, sequel, that they used the Blair Witch to sort of mess with the character's sense of time and space.
Yeah, well, that's what they revealed her power was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I felt like that was because they couldn't get around having people continually get lost in the Blair Witch Woods, and they had to explain it.
Yeah.
Right? So this movie's not at that point. So it can just do, these people got lost because they suck at not being lost.
Yeah.
And it worked. Like there was no, the God is making them get disoriented. There was no like whatever. You could read it into the movie you wanted to, but it also could just be that they are four people who don't know fuck all about hiking and they just got lost, right?
That is very true.
Which was really cool that it kept it. There's actually a moment where it's in the beginning of the movie when they've hiked a little ways away from where their starting point and they turn around in the woods and they look and they see the lodge in the distance. They see the lights of it and they're like, oh, we thought we were much further away than we were. So they feel super safe because they felt like they walked for days and days and days, but now they still can see where they started.
Yeah.
So everything seems like so easy to not get disoriented. And then the camera moves into the woods and shows you that everything looks the fucking same in every direction. And you realize you can literally go 100 yards off the path and start to get disoriented.
They did a really fantastic job about that. Other films are just like, hey, we're just going to spin the camera around a few times,
right? And
you have no idea where you're at. And here's what I think when I watch these films that take place like in a forest. I'm always like, just keep walking, don't stop until you get to the place. But
no nighttime breaks.
And then they do like those those aerial shots, just showing like the
hopelessness
landscape. And then I go,
right.
Oh yeah, no.
There's a great shot like that in Wrong Turn when the camera levitates up out.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if it's when they get to the treehouse that's way up.
I think it's the treehouse before the fire.
But when the camera goes up and gives you the full vantage point of how isolated they are, like how far away they actually are from anything. And this movie does a similar one, like shrouded in sort of cool fog. But you really, like you said, I don't even feel like you would have the luxury walking to feel like you even had time to take a break. Because it feels like you have to walk for 3 weeks to even have a chance to live.
Yeah, this film made them constantly feel like they were almost there. I was like,
oh,
hey, we're almost there.
It totally did, and the one guy was
exactly. And even at the very end, when the monster was chasing the guy, he was still almost there. But right. he eventually right. made it. What did you think about it ending with, or just the ending in general with him? Because they sort of did that ambiguous type of thing, like he walks away from the monster, then it's like cut to black.
I mean, there's all kinds of things from the plot left hanging.
Yeah.
Right. So, because his friend made him promise that he was going to burn all of that down. And, that's all well and good, but the monster's still alive, right? So,
yeah.
Like you burned a cabin, but that problem unresolved, right? That's not a.
Well, I mean,
that's not a thing. So is he coming back? Is he going to kill this thing with fire?
I don't think so.
Is he?
I mean, you're talking about Loki's son. Like it's not like the playground bully.
See, but this is the same thing as with Channel Zero. So what's your responsibility as the surviving character at this point? People are going to hike in that woods. I mean, they found wallets and tents from other people who had been killed. You can't just let this continue. I mean, he is good at letting his friends die.
In fact, that's his best quality. He let every single one of them die in this movie.
He tried to save Dom.
I don't know. I mean, because I feel here that's the tricky thing because I'm not a writer, but like
right.
in my head of typical horror films, it would play out like he goes to the police. The police think he's crazy. The police go there, and then it's another creature feature.
That's true. That's still all right.
And it's a never-ending story.
The Ritual 2. That's fine.
Don't. I don't know.
I love this movie. I'm ready for Ritual 2.
I don't know. I didn't really mind the ambiguous type ending of him walking away because it gave us the scene of him screaming at the monster, which I'm always, whenever I see a monster film, I'm always like, or whenever it is like, because that was my problem with the Paranormal Activity movies. I always think, okay, well, if there's like a demon,
right.
if we're in a world where demons exist, then where's like angels and like where's the opposite right. of that power?
Right.
Because if this is true, then that should be within the realm of possibility. Yes. And I sort of felt like he almost, I don't know. I just like the empowering moment at the end.
No, I mean, honestly, I think one of the pleasures of horror is, as a genre, is you get to celebrate with the people who have gone through hell.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's the thing. I think there's a moment in the movie Duel, the Steven Spielberg movie, where the guy beats the truck. And he just looks like the camera pans back and he's just sitting on a ledge watching this truck upside down on fire. And he's celebrating like like mammals celebrated in 2001 throwing bones in the air.
Yeah.
Like not much has changed, It's just literally like you beat something and you do like the Kevin McAllister Home Alone, like yes. Right. But in horror, the pleasure is greater because they've gone through more shit than poor Kevin McAllister has gone through.
I don't know. I'm sure.
I'd trade his Home Alone any day with In the Woods Alone.
Kevin McAllister went through some shit.
Whatever. But that's the thing is you get to celebrate with this guy, and it's very cathartic when he screams back at the monster, and it's actually very cathartic when he hurt the monster. And it made me wonder if that was an intentional message of the movie, because it didn't seem like it was that hard to hurt this monster. All he did was hit it with an axe.
Yeah.
And it almost started crying.
It definitely did not like.
But it was definitely put off and stepped back. As a matter of fact, that was the moment when he got away after he hit it with the axe. Right? So it's just, you just hit this, it's a huge monster and whatever, but it makes me wonder if that's how, the way animals work in the wild is they're either huge and they can beat you, or they appear to be huge. Like they puff themselves up or whatever. And maybe this is like the puff up situation where he looks really intimidating, but he's not so much, which means that all those people that were there not fighting back, actually, not fighting back is the whole theme of this fucking movie. That's the point of the liquor store.
Oh yeah, because no one did anything until he fought back. Then he wins. I was trying to figure out what the whole what that gem was that was in the.
It's the whole holy shit. The whole thing is about fighting back, right? So that means that
if he had taken the liquor bottle and smashed the guy,
then none of this would happen. And if anyone would fight back against this monster, they would find out the monster's not that hard to beat, but they're just scared because it's so.
They're giving it the power.
They're giving it the power.
There we go.
Problem solved.
Well, we figured the film out. There we go. We did it live.
We did it live.
Hot damn.
All right. But overall, would you recommend this movie?
Yeah, I'd recommend it.
Would you recommend to any horror fans, sets of horror fans?
I would.
Non-horror fans?
I would recommend it to all horror fans.
Okay.
Main reason being it's on Netflix.
Right.
So if you already have Netflix, you have nothing to lose.
Very, very practical.
And if we're going to say, but I could lose time, then I would say it's still worth it.
Not as much time as the people in this movie lost.
They lost everything.
They lost everything. Yeah, I think I agree. I think I would recommend it. The only thing that makes me hesitate is it gave me strong vibes of some very divisive movies. Like it made me think of The Witch. It made me think of The Babadook. So
they're divisive, but they're fucking good.
Right. No, they're great movies. So I would recommend.
Here's the thing. The acting is amazing. In fact, the lead actor was in the Christmas special for Black Mirror, the one with John Hamm.
Yep.
He's fantastic. So everyone was a fantastic actor.
Yep.
The guys and even the village people, like they were great. The cinematography is super beautiful.
Awesome.
It has a very shining feel to it. Not a lot of dolly stuff, but like the zoom ins and stuff.
Totally.
The soundtrack is on point, and it's very it sets the tone and the atmosphere. And I wouldn't
want to be hearing that music in the air at 2 a.m. if I was walking in a dark alley.
No, I wouldn't either. And the creature design looks like a nightmare from Princess Mononoke.
That's awesome.
It
does.
That's what it reminds me of.
Totally does.
So I think for
here's the thing. I was hesitating a little bit, but I realized that I went into it thinking it was going to be a slow burn. I don't think it's slow burn.
It's not that slow. I mean, the movie's an hour and a half, so there's not a lot of time to be slow.
Yeah, fuck it. Everyone should check this movie out.
You have your typical horror movie like set up for the first 10, 15 minutes, but other than that, like it's well worth it. Doesn't waste any time bullshitting on the dumb things.
No, yeah, I think it's absolutely great, and I'm glad that it sort of served as the horror Netflix redemption for me after Cloverfield Paradox.
It definitely was like a horror movie redemption for Netflix, because now anytime they also have the one Home film. It actually was it actually popped up right after this film ended, so I need to check that out. So maybe we'll have 2 home runs from Netflix in a row
for sure.
But if not, we still have this one, The Ritual, still being a really solid film.
Yeah,
that I liked.
Really, really good, and like. Now I feel like I don't have to rewatch 50 other horror movies that I might have been tempted to rewatch.
Well, that's the thing. We did episodes where it was like, or when we do like the year end of the year specials, we realized there's like 30 like horror films that we never even heard of that everyone's like, this is super underrated. And I feel like this could have been one of those underrated ones.
Right,
But
right.
it was like we were just fishing in the right place.
Yeah, there was a movie called Dark Was the Night that I don't think got much attention, and it actually reminded me a little bit of this movie, and I feel like it could have been this movie. Like if this movie had been released the way Dark Was the Night was, it would have met the same fate as
know,
Dark Was the Night.
It's funny you say that because I was just thinking, if you had called this movie It Comes at Night, I'd be like, yeah, that works too.
That's true.
That's a great
Another
horror film
divisive.
title. Exactly.
This is just a divisive magnet for
It's
amazing.
like it's like a course correction.
Well, this is that's actually amazing. I'm really curious. So anyone who's seen this movie, let us know on our Facebook page what you think. I'm really curious personally because the more we talk about it, the more names come up of movies that I feel like are really much hated movies by segments of the horror community.
Yes.
So, but now that we've gone through which It Comes the Night and Babadook,
And it follows.
it follows. Well, I'm like, all right, well, I'm really curious. It would be amazing if this movie could echo all of those, but still not rub horror fans the wrong way. I think that's an amazing magic trick.
I'm trying to think if there's anything in here that would like be the thing that divided horror fans, like The Witch and The Babadook and It Follows. But this movie, I don't know if this movie feels like a solid, like, I want to say like 7.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't try to do anything way too fucking weird.
Right.
But what it does really, really well in terms of just telling you a story about this guy and fighting back.
I think actually that we had done this funny thing with some of our podcast episodes where we would try to figure out what historical figure a movie was, right? So
Yes.
if a movie was a figure from history, who would it be, right? Because this movie just feels like the personality of it is someone who just gets their job done. They just go about their craft, right?
Yes.
And it didn't dwell too long on things. It didn't wait too long to put in action. It didn't get more complicated or philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't dive too much into lore and mythology. It just did what it wanted to do and got out. It's kind of like the guy in the woods.
It was like a very efficient meeting.
Yes.
It's like, horror fans got around. Here's a story.
Yep.
All right, take it as you will. See you later.
And
Thank you.
I don't think it's a classic, but I think it's an extremely good movie. And the only thing that, like, I personally think The Witch is a classic. I think people
Yeah.
are still gonna be talking about that movie 50 years from now. But the difference is that a classic will have one element at least that's so far above what everybody else. So anyone can be at the floor or the middle, but like in basketball, LeBron has a ceiling that's higher than other people's ceiling. Right?
Yeah.
So The Witch's ceiling was, to me, that it was intense.
Mm-hmm.
The intensity of it was unlike other things that were around it.
Yes.
The element of like The Shining that goes up is the fact that it's so unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's no, like, you feel like your mind is being screwed with for 2 hours plus watching it. Right. There's no element in this that hits like that high above the clouds. Like, no, right.
Yeah.
There's no standout one thing that's just the LeBron dunk. It's just all, really solid right outside the line 3-point shots.
Yeah, but that's
right.
I totally get what you're saying. Where it's like it's floating at like slightly above average.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about like how.
And the only standout element is that it doesn't. I mean, this is a sad lowering of the bar for standout elements. Is that it doesn't make any major missteps like other movies would.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It just felt like it's just a nice tight package of horror film.
Right. Because think about like what this could be. They could have made this movie exactly the same way. And they could have been like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make this monster. We're going to give it this really cool design, and we'll call it the Bye-Bye Monster. They could fuck it up and give it a bad name, but they didn't, right?
Yeah.
They could fuck it up and make the design ridiculous, like the Bye Bye Man,
or focused way too much on the monster.
or focused way too much, or revealed it too soon, or they could have done any one number of those things. They did none of those. So that's like its standout element is like lack of flaws, but I don't feel like that counts to make you a classic.
No, I think that makes
thing.
I think that puts you
Close.
I think it puts you very close.
Yes.
I really like it, and I would recommend it. It's worth the hour and 34 minutes, I think.
Now, okay, and then my last horror question before we move on is I've been thinking about this more and more and asking it more and more. How old were you? What's the first horror movie you remember terrifying you, if you have one?
The first horror movie
That terrified you, even for a scene, or even like as a kid.
as a kid growing up, I think what terrified me the most was the Chucky doll.
Okay,
Growing up,
but not the movie itself. Like
just the idea
Just
of
the idea.
that doll chasing me absolutely scared the shit out of me.
okay, so the first movie I remember terrifying me as a kid that was horror, not because some cartoons and all that shit were terrifying, but as horror was Poltergeist. It was the clown under the bed scene.
Yeah.
So the first one I remember feeling like that's going to be in my head for the next couple of days. Thanks, movie. Right. And I think when I saw Poltergeist, I was probably 9 or 10. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think if a 9 or 10-year-old me had seen The Ritual, would it have terrified me? Like, would I be talking about it decades later like I'm talking about Poltergeist right now? And the answer to that is probably not.
Yeah.
But I feel like because of the monster design itself and how weird it is and where like the eyes are placed and all that stuff, there's a chance that it might have jolted me in a way where, if I came across that on TV 20 years after I saw it, I'd be like the little kid inside me would be like, oh shit. Right. I feel like there's a small chance, but not likely. What do you think about?
Nah, the Ritual, I think 15 years from now I'll be like, hey, did you see The Ritual? Oh my god, I totally forgot about the film. I fucking love it. that's there might
Even if you'd seen it as a kid.
Even if I'd seen it as a kid,
it wouldn't have terrified you.
it would have scared me, but I would have enjoyed it because I would have known it was a horror film. So I would be watching it as going like, oh my god, this is a horror film. I'm waiting for something scary,
Right.
and then we would have gotten some good scenes
Totally.
out of it, and I would have enjoyed the monster.
Because I told you the story once before. We had as really when I was really young, had a group of friends over. It was a sleepover, and somehow I inflicted the original Evil Dead on them. None of us were supposed to be watching anything like that, right? And it terrified them so much that the bulk of them called their parents and asked their parents to come pick them up and leave the sleepover. They couldn't stay in a house they weren't used to sleeping in after watching that movie. Right?
Yes.
That's terrifying impact, and I feel like this movie does not pack that punch, even for like kids that age or whatever.
Yeah, but I don't think it was trying to though.
Maybe. I feel like most horror movies try.
No, like this film, like what Wes Craven said. I'm not trying to make a horror film. I'm trying to make a good. I'm trying just to make.
That's
a
true.
good
That's
film.
that's totally true. That's it.
And this one was so story driven that I think they cared more about the main characters more than they did the scare factor. The scare factor was just something that happened to the characters while they were on.
That's a really
journey.
good point. There's so many adult themes in this that you wouldn't get as a child anyway.
Exactly.
That's a different.
They're not trying.
It makes it a different movie.
Yeah, they're not trying.
Like Rosemary's Baby wouldn't have scared me as a kid either.
Exactly, and I think
because I wouldn't know what the hell was going on.
Exactly, because I think it's just more around the idea of like, hey, fight back, don't be such a pussy. That's what they should have said with him. Don't be a pussy, just fight. Grab an axe and throw it at a monster.
Agreed. All right. Well, I'm glad we watched it.
It was totally worth it. Totally worth checking out. And until next time, follow us on Spotify. We just discovered during our last live stream that we finally got up on there.
May I suggest a new ritual for our listeners?
Yes.
Get us on Spotify.
Follow us on Spotify. That way you get all the updates.
And every week, have a ritual of listening to the Halloweekly podcast.
Yes. It's less of a pain in the ass than iTunes.
Yes, for sure.
Because anytime you're like, hey, go subscribe on iTunes, they're like, you have to create an account. You have to do this. You have to do that. Spotify's like, we got you. Don't worry about that. We'll work on like pretty much every device.
Totally.
So check us out on Spotify. Follow us there. Until next time, stay scary and watch a bunch of horror movies.
Bye, guys.
Bye.